I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, spilling my guts on some online forum about my own life falling apart. But honestly, I need someone to hear this, someone who won't judge me for what I'm about to say. It started out like any other. I met her about 4 years ago. Her name, Emily. She's gorgeous, long dark hair, sharp green eyes, a smile that could light up a room. We moved fast, got serious, and eventually I thought I'd found the one. We had plans, wedding in 6 months, a little place we'd start calling ours. Everything seemed perfect. Until it was. The weird thing is, I've always been a fairly cautious guy. I noticed little things, but I brushed them off. She'd be texting late at night, but she'd always claim it was her sister or a friend. She'd disappear on weekends, saying she was out shopping or meeting friends, but something about the way she'd avoid my eyes or get defensive made me suspicious. Still, I didn't want to be that guy paranoid over nothing. One day, I was poking around her email, something I'd never done before but somehow felt compelled to check. I found a folder tucked away, hidden under a dozen subfolders. It was labeled work, but I knew that wasn't right. I clicked it open and saw receipts. Hotel receipts from a place downtown I'd never even been to. The dates lined up with her weekends away and the amounts were strange, expenses I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped when I saw the name of the hotel, the Grand Regency. It wasn't cheap, and I knew she'd never go there alone. I scraped my fingers across the keyboard, feeling the cold sweat of realization. She'd been lying about everything. The receipts weren't just for work trips, they were evidence of something else, something darker. And the worst part, the dates matched what I'd always suspected but couldn't prove. Her weekends away, her mysterious disappearances, the way she'd brush off my questions like I was some paranoid fool. I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding like a drum. My palms sweatier than they'd ever been. I could feel the blood drain from my face, leaving me numb. This wasn't just a fling or a mistake. Someone else had been grooming her. For months. I could almost feel the betrayal crawling under my skin, making my stomach churn. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I kept looking at the receipts, imagining what was happening behind those hotel doors. My mind kept circling back to that one detail I couldn't shake, the way she'd act when she was lying, the way her voice would tremble just enough that I'd notice. All these little signs that I'd ignored. All those times I'd shrugged off my gut feelings, convinced I was overthinking. I told myself I needed to confront her, but I didn't have the words for it. How do you ask your fiancée if she's been cheating on you with her boss? How do you even bring that up without sounding like a jealous lunatic? But that's what I was heading towards, whether I liked it or not. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Not anymore. The next day I called her, and I felt my voice tremble when I told her I wanted to talk. She sounded nervous but said she was just busy with work. I could hear her heartbeat in her voice, the quickened, shaky kind. Inside, I felt like my chest was tightening. My mind was racing, trying to piece everything together. When she finally came home that evening, I was waiting in the living room, my stomach clenched like I'd swallowed something bitter. Her eyes flicked to me and I saw the flicker of guilt, something I hadn't seen before. I didn't want to yell, but I couldn't help it. "Who was in the hotel?" I asked, voice low but trembling with anger. She froze, her face paled. "What are you talking about?" I pushed the receipts across the table. The hotel, the dates match your weekends away. "Tell me the truth, Emily." Her eyes darted and she opened her mouth like she was about to lie, but then she sighed, defeated. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "It's complicated." "Complicated," I repeated, voice sharp. "You think that makes it okay? You've been lying to me for months. How long has this been going on?" She looked down, tears welling up in her eyes. "Since before the wedding, I didn't know how to tell you." That was the moment everything changed. I felt this cold wave of fury and betrayal swell inside me, making my hands shake. I wanted to scream, to break something. But instead I just looked at her, feeling the weight of it all. I'd been naive, blind to the signs, and now I was faced with the brutal truth. I knew I had to plan my next move carefully. Because if she'd been hiding this from me, what else was she capable of? I'd always been honest, straightforward. I didn't deserve to be played like this. But revenge, that was a different story. I needed to make her understand she'd crossed a line I'd never tolerate. I had no idea how I'd do it yet, but I knew one thing: this wasn't over. not by a long shot, and I was ready to take control of what was left of my pride. The days after that night felt like walking through a fog. My mind kept replaying her face, the way her eyes avoided mine, the trembling in her voice when she confessed. Every time I thought about confronting her again, my stomach twisted tighter. I had to be smart. I knew I couldn't just blow up and ruin everything in a rage. I started noticing more things. Small details that seemed insignificant at first but now felt like clues. She'd come home late, smelling of perfume I'd never smelled on her before. Her phone buzzed constantly, but she'd always lock it or hide it quickly if I got near. I'd catch her glancing at her email or messages, and I could see that guilty flicker again. One night I decided to follow her. Not in a creepy, obsessive way, just enough to see where she was going. I waited until she slipped out with her purse, and I trailed her in my car, keeping a safe distance. She drove to a part of town I didn't recognize, turned into a parking lot, and got out. I parked a few blocks away, watching her meet someone tall with a suit that looked expensive. When I saw her hug him, my stomach sank. That was him, the boss. I felt a surge of anger I couldn't contain. Who the hell did she think she was, leading me on like this, lying about everything? I wanted to storm out and tear into her, but I held back, knowing I needed to keep my cool. This was part of the plan. If I was going to do something, it had to be calculated. Over the next few days, I gathered evidence, screenshots of messages, more receipts, even a hotel bill showing her name with his. All of it confirmed what I'd suspected. She'd been groomed, cultivated, manipulated. And I was just the fool in the background, blissfully unaware. I started drafting my revenge plan. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, and I refused to just walk away quietly. She needed to see what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away for some fleeting thrill. I decided I'd show her that her lies and her betrayal had consequences. One evening I confronted her again. Her eyes flickered with guilt, but she desperately tried to deny everything. "You've been lying to me," I said coldly. "You've been cheating with your boss. All those hotel receipts, the late-night meetings, you're grooming him, aren't you?" She looked like she was about to cry, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook that easily. "How long has this been going on?" I didn't mean for it to happen," she stammered. It got out of control." I clenched my fists. "You expect me to believe that, after everything, you've been grooming him, too, haven't you, playing your little game while I was planning our future?" Her face twisted with remorse and guilt. "Please, I didn't want you to find out like this." I stepped closer, voice low and harsh. "You're damn right you didn't. Well, guess what? I'm done. I've got enough evidence to show everyone what kind of person you really are." It was like that moment in slow motion, her trying to justify herself, me standing there, feeling the cold, bitter sting of betrayal. My mind was already working on the next step. I wanted her to feel the loss, the pain, the regret. She'd lied, manipulated, and played me for a fool. Now, it was time she knew exactly what that meant. The plan was simple but effective. I'd give her a taste of her own medicine. I knew she'd freak out if she found out I'd been digging into her phone and email, so I kept that to myself for now. Instead, I set up a meeting with her boss under the guise of a private conversation, but I knew what I'd do. I'd make him see that I knew everything, that I was watching, that I wasn't going to let him get away with it. But before I executed anything, I needed to see her broken. I wanted her to understand she'd crossed a line, that her actions weren't just a betrayal. They were a reckless gamble that could destroy her life just as much as it had devastated mine. Next, I started planning the confrontation. I didn't want it to be messy or violent, but I wanted it to be effective, crushing enough to make her regret every second she'd spent with him. I had to be careful, though. Too much and I'd lose control. Too little and I'd be left with nothing. As I sat in my apartment, staring at the evidence I'd gathered, I felt a strange calm settle over me. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity. I'd been humiliated, yes, but I refused to let her walk away unscathed. This was just the beginning. I had a plan and I was ready to see it through. The day I put my plan into motion, I felt the adrenaline pounding in my ears. It was strange. I'd been so numb since the betrayal, but now, with everything lined up, I was almost excited. Not excited about her pain, but about taking control again. about finally making her see the consequences of her actions. I met her boss, Daniel, at a quiet, upscale cafe downtown. The kind of place where the leather chairs are cold and the coffee is strong enough to wake the dead. We sat across from each other, and I made sure to keep my tone even, but there was a cold edge to my words. "I know what's been going on," I said, watching his face carefully. "I've seen the receipts, the hotel bookings, the messages. You've been grooming her for months, haven't you?" He blinked, trying to act innocent, but I saw the flicker of guilt in his eyes. "Look, I don't know what you think you've got, but—" "You're damn right you don't," I cut him off sharply. "Because I've got enough to ruin you. I'm not just going to walk away and pretend I didn't see this. You've been playing with fire, Daniel. I'm about to make sure you get burned." His face turned red, but I kept my voice steady. "You're not just some innocent bystander. You groomed my fiancée, pushed her into this, and now you think you can just brush me off. No way. I want you to understand something. This isn't just about some affair. It's about respect, boundaries, and consequences. You crossed the line, and I'm going to make sure you regret it." He looked away, trying to gather his thoughts. "You're out of your mind, man. You have no proof." "Oh, I have plenty," I said, sliding my phone across the table. "Screenshots, messages, hotel receipts, all of it. You want to deny it? Fine. But I'm prepared to go to the cops, to the press, to anyone who will listen, because what you did is sick." His eyes darted around, and I knew I'd shaken him. I wanted him to understand that this wasn't a bluff, that I was serious about destroying his reputation if that's what it took. I leaned in close. "You leave her alone. Stay away from her. And if I catch you even looking at her again, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of predator you are." He finally nodded, defeated, and I left the cafe feeling a strange sense of calm. I'd done what I set out to do. Now I just had to wait. That night I called her. Her voice sounded shaky when she picked up. "You're not going to believe what I did today," I told her, feeling the weight lift just a little. "I met with Daniel. I told him what I knew. I made it clear I'm not playing any more games." There was silence on the other end, then a soft voice, almost pleading. "Please don't do anything crazy." "Oh, trust me," I said, voice cold and steady. "I'm just getting started." I knew she'd freak out when she found out I'd confronted him directly. That was the point. I wanted her to realize I was serious, serious enough to ruin her life if that's what it took. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about standing up for myself. I could feel my jaw tighten as I clutched the phone. My fists clenched so tightly that my palms cooled with sweat. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of everything I was going to do to make her see what she'd lost. And honestly, I didn't care if she hated me afterward. She already did, I could tell. That was fine, because I was done being the fool. I was reclaiming my dignity one way or another. Over the next few days, I kept my plan close to the chest. I wasn't in a rush. I wanted everything to line up perfectly. The more I thought about it, the clearer I saw the steps I needed to take. Daniel was a key piece, but I knew I had to push Emily even further to break her down, to make her see that her actions had real consequences. I started by subtly making her feel watched. Nothing obvious, just enough to unsettle her. I'd ask questions about her day, stare a little too long at her phone when she was distracted, and casually mention things I'd seen or overheard. I wanted her to understand I wasn't going to let her get away with this, that this betrayal had consequences. One evening, she was sitting on the couch, nervously fidgeting with her bracelet, her eyes darting around. I could see the mounting anxiety in her. She knew I was onto her, even if she refused to admit it outright. "I know everything, Emily," I said softly, trying to keep my voice calm. "The hotel receipts, the messages, you can't hide from this anymore." Her face paled and she looked down. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "I was confused. I thought I loved him, but I swear I didn't want to hurt you." I felt a flicker of hatred, pure, cold, unfiltered. "Stop, just stop. You knew exactly what you were doing. You groomed him and you lied to me for months." She swallowed hard. "Please, I want to fix this. I don't want to lose everything." I shook my head, feeling the fury bubbling beneath my skin. "You're not going to fix anything. You're going to face the consequences of what you've done." That was the moment I decided it was time for the final move. I had gathered enough evidence to make her see that she'd lost control. Now I'd make her regret it. The next step was the most delicate. I contacted a private investigator, someone I knew from work, discreet and reliable. I asked him to dig into Daniel's background, find out if he had any other secrets or skeletons. I wanted to hit him where it hurt publicly if necessary. I knew Daniel's reputation was fragile. I just had to poke around enough to find something damaging. While waiting for that, I prepared the confrontation. I scheduled a meeting with Emily in a quiet, neutral place. Nothing fancy, just a park where we could talk without prying eyes. I wanted her to see I was serious. I wanted this to be the moment she realized she'd pushed everything too far. When she arrived, she looked nervous but tried to act calm. I could smell her perfume sweet, but with a hint of desperation. I didn't waste time. "You've been lying from the start," I said plainly. "I've seen the hotel receipts, the messages, everything. You've been grooming him, haven't you?" Her lips trembled. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she repeated softly. I don't know what I thought anymore." I took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. "You're going to tell me the truth now, about everything. How long this has been going on, what he's done, what you've both planned." She looked away, tears brimming in her eyes. "It's been months," she admitted finally. "I thought I loved him. I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't know how to stop it." I clenched my fists, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. "You betrayed me in the worst way. You've been grooming him and you think I won't do anything about it." "I didn't mean to ruin everything," she said, voice cracking. "Please, I'll fix it." "No," I snapped. "You've already ruined everything, and now I'm going to make sure you pay for it." I pulled out my phone and opened the messages I'd gotten from the Pi, proof of Daniel's shady dealings, possible other women he'd been with, signs of manipulation. I showed her everything. Her face crumpled as she realized she'd been caught. "What are you going to do?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "What I should have done weeks ago. I'm going to destroy everything that links you to him. You're going to wish you never crossed me." That night, I knew I had everything I needed. The pieces were in place. I'd revealed her secrets, stepped into her world of lies, and now it was time for the final blow. I wasn't going to just walk away. I was going to make her understand what betrayal truly meant. The next morning, I made a call. I handed over the evidence to my lawyer, told him to prepare everything for a clean break. I packed a bag, collected the last of my things, and left her standing there, staring after me with wide, helpless eyes. I felt a strange sense of relief as I turned my back on her. She'd lost her grip and I had taken back some control. It was done. The damage was done. All that remained was to walk away and leave her to pick up the pieces. Because in the end, revenge isn't about destruction, it's about reclaiming your dignity. And I was ready to do just that. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. I'd expected some relief, maybe a sense of victory, but instead I felt hollow, like I'd lost a part of myself. Still, I knew I'd done what I had to do. She was the one who threw everything away, not me. I'd taken control back, and now I had to figure out how to move forward. I moved into a new apartment, one in a quieter part of town. It was small, just enough to keep my mind focused on healing. I kept my phone on silent most of the time, blocking out the noise of the world. Every day I replayed the events, trying to make sense of everything. How did I miss the signs? How could I have been so blind? The feeling of betrayal lingered deep in my chest, like a scar that refused to fade. I stayed away from social media for a while. I didn't want to see her face, didn't want to relive the moment I knew everything was over. Instead, I spent my days working, trying to distract myself. But every night my brain would circle back to her lies, her betrayal, the way she had made a fool of me. It was a slow process, but I gradually started to feel like I was reclaiming myself. One evening, I sat in my new place, pouring a glass of whiskey, when she finally reached out. Her message came through, small, tentative, filled with regret. She apologized, said she was sorry for everything, and begged for a chance to talk. I read it and felt nothing. I typed a reply, simple and cold. "You lost me forever. Don't contact me again." That was the moment I realized how much my resolve had hardened. I wasn't going to let her back in, no matter how much she begged. I'd been humiliated, but I refused to be a fool anymore. I had seen her true face, and I knew I'd never forget it. A few days later, I went to the lawyer's office to finalize everything. I filed for divorce clean, quick, without drama. It was the final nail in the coffin, and I wanted to make sure she couldn't worm her way back into my life. I handed over the keys to my old apartment, signed the papers, and left the courtroom feeling like I'd reclaimed some part of myself I'd lost. Walking out of that office, I felt lighter but not fully free. The anger still simmered beneath the surface. That's when I started reflecting on everything. How I'd let her manipulate me for so long. How I'd ignored the red flags because I wanted to believe in the best. I'd trusted her with my future and she'd shattered it. But I also realized something else. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about self-respect, about knowing I deserved better than someone who played me for a fool. I'd come out of this stronger, even if battered. I'd learned the hard way that sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out the poison and walk away. Now I'm slowly rebuilding. I've started seeing a therapist, working on trusting myself again. I stay busy, focus on my career, and surround myself with friends who remind me of who I am. The pain still lingers, but it's less sharp each day. Looking back, I don't regret what I did. Maybe I should have seen the signs sooner. Maybe I should have left her sooner, but I don't dwell on that anymore. What's done is done. I just know I won't be that naive guy again. My advice to anyone in a similar situation: trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you want to believe. And don't be afraid to take control. Revenge, in its own way, is about reclaiming your dignity. Stand firm, walk away when you need to, and never let anyone make you feel less than you deserve. Because in the end, the only person responsible for your happiness is you. A few months have passed since everything fell apart, and honestly, I'm in a better place now. I won't say I've healed completely. Those wounds run deep, and some days are still tough, but I've regained my footing. The betrayal cut so deep that I thought I'd never come back from it. But I did. The thing I've realized most is how much my perspective has shifted. I used to think love and trust were absolute. Now I see them as fragile things that need constant care. You can't ignore the warning signs or dismiss your gut feelings. If something doesn't sit right, it's usually for a reason. I've learned to listen, really listen, to that voice that warns you when things are off. Looking back, my biggest mistake was ignoring the early red flags. The late-night texts, the evasiveness, the little lies, those small things that I convinced myself didn't matter. I was blinded by what I wanted to see. That's what betrayal does. It blinds you until it's too late. Now, I value honesty and respect above all else. I don't want to be with someone who manipulates or lies. I want genuine, straightforward connection. I've started dating again cautiously. No rush. No intense commitments. Just taking small steps to rebuild my trust, not just in others but in myself. I'm learning to recognize my worth again. What stayed with me the most, though, is the lesson that revenge isn't about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming your power, about making a statement that you won't tolerate betrayal or disrespect. I didn't destroy her. I destroyed the illusion she created. I took back my control, and that's what mattered. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone in a similar situation, it's this: never let someone take away your dignity. Trust your instincts. When things feel wrong, don't wait for proof, trust the feeling. And if you find yourself betrayed, don't dwell on revenge for its own sake. Use it as a tool to heal, to cut out the poison, and to move forward stronger than before. Looking back now, I see the pain as a catalyst, something that forced me to reevaluate what I want and need. I don't regret what I did. She made her choices and I made mine. I won't lie, it hurts to think about all those wasted years, the promises broken, the lies she told. But it also made me realize what I truly deserve: honesty, respect, and someone who values me for who I am. So I'll keep moving forward. I won't forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. I've reclaimed my voice, my dignity, and my peace. And if there's one thing I want everyone reading this to understand, it's that life goes on and you can come out the other side stronger. Just never forget to trust yourself, even when everything else seems to be falling apart.